Hey, Shalom Akim. First and foremost, call Allah Yahweh, Ba'ashem Shai, Ba'ashem Dash. Once again, double honors go out to the apostles, bishops, and elders of Great Millstone. Salutations to the El Akim out there on the highways and byways, pushing this truth, all sincerity and honesty. All right, that's what we're all hoping to do and trying to, of course, open the eyes of the remaining, hopefully, elect, because time is short. And it thrills me to see articles like this because it just highlights the fact and more how close we are to getting the fuck up out of here. It says retired Army generals to join nonprofit which urges public to recommit to democracy. And they quote, "This is as dangerous a time as we've seen in our lifetime." And that's good. This is from CBS News. All right. It says a new nonprofit group, which calls itself Team Democracy, is urging citizens, politicians, and organizations to recommit to America's democratic core principles. See, first of all, they're under the false assumption that they're in control, and we know that they're not. All right. It goes into where it talks about the angels holding back those winds, and all right, and we see that that's no longer the case. These things, these instances and incidents are being fueled more and more. We're starting to see, actually we're in the throes of World War III now, and it's quickly becoming more and more to the point where it's going to get physical. All right, it says the nonprofit includes Army General Stanley McChrystal and Lieutenant General Douglas Lute, who have more than 6 decades of military and government service between them. And all this is just saying that these motherfuckers are scared now. All right, it says both are now retired. McChrystal, who once led U.S. forces around the world, including in Afghanistan, sees the country's current divisions as an issue of national security. I actually think that this is as dangerous a time as we've seen in our lifetime. And you're seeing more and more of these, not only your average elderly people, citizens saying they've never seen anything like this before. But these politicians, these leaders around the world, you know, it goes on to say, because you see the symptoms of people who are disassociated from the legitimacy of the government, and that's because people are waking up to the bullshit, all right, which is inevitable, all right. This is what it was prone to happen, you know. They are starting to question basic things like, was an election outcome valid? All right, and that goes to, you know, the Trumpsters, and we all know that behind the scenes they knew that. And I'm not backing one or the other. I really don't give a shit. But you can tell that it was more to it than met the eye. You got to remember, Trump at heart is about the money. He's a businessman. What led, or you know, not led to, but what helped the situation get to where it is now, as far as Biden being in here now, hey, what did our people do? Got all caught up in their emotions. And of course, this is something that these racist Edomites look at too. These damn niggers, they always fucking Democrat. They always vote Democrat. All right, which we know actually never really mattered. But as far as Trump goes, it's like, well, what president actually did something for us that really mattered? But again, they got caught up in their emotions, and this old ass racist alleged pedophile is now in there, and That's something our people never really understood. They, of course, see the avowed racist in the midst of them. And avowed just means they openly declare who and what they are. And yet, you fall for people like the guy that's in there now because they smile at you know, and all along he's letting you know what he was about. You just didn't see it. You forget the legislation that he helped pass, all right, under Clinton, and even before then, going into the 70s, when you look at his record, he was always that way. Anyway, going on, I didn't want to go off on a tangent, but just, it is frustrating, but our people are just, what's that story about Stalin's chicken? The example given. Let's go into it. I don't want to, you know, let's see here. Stalin's chicken. This is the so-called black man / African American. Here it is, Stalin's plucked chicken. It says, why did Stalin's sad chicken feed from him? And this can go to Revelation's 12th chapter, where we were fed for a time, we received sustenance. This goes into this. It says, in Joseph Stalin's own words, people are like this chicken. It doesn't matter how much pain you inflict on them. The moment you offer them what they need, they will still follow you and turn to you for their survival. Again, going into the curses. This is a whole lesson in and of itself, which I probably will do next. But just to get you to understand what I'm talking about. And this country has done anything and everything to our people. And still, there we are. All right. But in any case, let's continue with this. It says, I actually think this is a dangerous time, as we've seen in our lifetime, Crystal told CBS News, because you see the symptoms of people who are disassociated from the legitimacy of the government. They are starting to question basic things like, was an election outcome valid? Okay. Also, you have to understand that with the advent of the internet, knowledge is more accessible now. Google and all these other search engines used to, like the saying goes, if you want to hide something from, you know, and fill in the blank, you just put it in a book, and that was largely true. But now it's much more easier, all right, to find things out via the internet. All right. And that psychological trick that they used to play, well, it's a conspiracy theory, and people are like, nah, because it used to, that would just automatically, and it still does, automatically, it used to just automatically just turn people away, you know, because there's the image of the guy with a tinfoil hat, you know, he's whacked out. But as it turns out, you know, hey, those so-called conspiracy theories are right on a hell of a lot of things. And you people that just blindly follow your so-called leaders, well, you're screwed. Anyway, it says Luke also served globally over a 4-decade career, including a U.S. ambassador to NATO. It says these tiny fractures, these small fractures, that because of our international experience, we understand we widen and can divide America, and that's good. Isaiah chapter 19, All right, it says it can actually present opportunities for our opponents. The two said they've experienced struggling democracies overseas and see some of those warning signs in the U.S. Yes. Why am I reacting like that? It's because if you understand what these wicked ass pieces of shit have done to other countries and undermining, all right, the political systems in these other so-called democracies, because they wanted to put a puppet leader that would do what they wanted. Yes, this is good news, because what goes around comes around. It's as simple as that. Let's get some more scriptures here. Let's see. Let's go to. Let's see. Psalm 7. All right. It's as simple as this. Psalm 7:15. He made a pit and digged it, and is fallen into the ditch which he made. 16. His mischief shall return upon his own head, and his violent dealing shall come down upon his own pate. All right. These people are responsible for, can't even count the deaths. All right. And this is all engineered in the 19th century. You know, the murder of Tsar Nicholas's family. They had to get rid of them. The First World War, all the things that happened since, all right, up to the Second World War, all those, because at the end of the Second World War, you got to understand, right at the end, I have a book, and it goes into how, was it the Merchant Marines? Right at the end of the Second World War, they were, I'm gonna have to roll that back because I can't remember, but it was forces being sent over to what they used to refer to as Indochina. At that point, we're talking about in 1945. And they were starting to set that up. And then there was the, what was it, 54? You know, well, the Korean War in between, but in 54, Vietnam, they rebelled against the French government, kicked their asses, and then that's when the U.S., shortly thereafter, that's when the U.S. got involved. I believe it was actually around 59, somewhere around in there. Because they'll tell you, well, Vietnam didn't start till 65. Okay, yeah, troops on the so-called, when the regular armies and stuff started going on there. But no, there were special forces and all that. See, that's what you gotta understand. People don't realize that. They actually think, well, war starts when, you know, you get all this massive ground troops up. No. There are things that are happening before then. It's like this thing over here in, where is it? Ukraine. They were saying, well, there's no boots on the ground. Well, special forces has been over there. You don't need special forces to guard things. That's not what they're for. All right. Anyway, back to the article. Let's see. So yeah, what we're in here now is they're right in saying, you know, they've never seen anything like this. It's dangerous times. This is because this devil understands that these are his last days. It's Revelation 12:12. You know, he knows he has but a short time, and they're trying to use this thing called control chaos. Well, how can you control chaos? All right. It says, as seasoned observers of conflict, they join Team Democracy to highlight core principles. And here they go with that, but, you know, core principles. And we know Edom has no principles. All right, not righteous ones at least. They want everyone to step back and believe that our nation is a democracy. It starts with a grassroots movement. Every American has to step back and say, what do I really believe? In other words, they want everybody to go back to sleep. All right. And you're going to have a few. Can't put a percentage or a number on it. But by and large, this is something, it's old, it's tired. The so-called democracy, everybody sees through it now. All right, and a good indicator is everybody wants to get away from the dollar, the petrodollar, the reserve currency of the world. Everybody saying, fuck it, we're tired of this shit, because they see that it's no future, and that this country, they see the bullshit that it's behind and that it promotes, the wickedness that it promotes. All right, and they want to get away from this shit. Anyway, I'm skipping on down. It says it actually opens opportunities for those who would do us harm. Who would do you harm? Don't you realize you're in everybody's business, as what the scriptures say? What Cain, he was what? He was a fugitive and a vagabond. And he has been a fugitive in the earth. He hasn't answered for the crimes that he's committed, particularly against us, the Israelites, on this side of the world, even. All right? So this would be in recent, when you count 500 and what? Roughly 30 years. What about the stuff before that? He hasn't paid. All right? Goes on to say, it says, let's see, recent CBS polling underscores these divisions, with most Americans expecting violence after future presidential elections. See, all that stuff they instigated around the world with, their plants. He talked about grassroots earlier. Well, that's what they did in these other countries. Started shit with the citizens, and which eventually led to uprisings. All right, and they got in there who they wanted as a puppet leader so they could gain control. This is not the America, they go on to say, this is not the America that we've come to expect of ourselves. I think if we look in cases where people think violence is an option, or even see, you can just see the hypocrisy. The hypocrisy for him to even here. Listen to what they're saying. I think if we look in cases where people think violence is an option or even an obligation, then we are starting to have drifted somewhere that we see in other countries far away. This is what you caused in those faraway countries. That, what did former President Trump say? They called them shitholes. Well, you're the reason that they are now shitholes. All right, the story about Haiti alone, why it's still the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, is because, in part, due to America, but when we talk about these Edomites as a whole, what France did. Look what France did. And America would come behind and aid them in doing what they did to Haiti. Because it all goes to Edomite/white supremacy, colonialism at the root. They have to enforce this system, but like I said, it's old and tired. It has to go. They're being pulled out of the power seat. This is more scriptures. Let's see. Let's go to Micah. And then I'm going to wrap it up. Let's go to Micah 2. Because this is what they're about. This is Micah chapter 2, verse 1. Woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they will practice it, because it is in the power of their hand. They just can't help themselves. Let's go real quick to Proverbs 4. Scroll on down. 16. It says, for they sleep not, except they have done mischief. And their sleep is taken away unless they cause sun to fail. They can't help it. They can't help it. Because he was created to be the wicked. All right, Malachi, first chapter, verses 1 through 4. 17, for they eat the bread of wickedness and drink the wine of violence. This is the so-called white man. He can't help himself. This is what he's created to be, the wicked. This is what he does, wickedness. All right, he can't help it. People have, a good portion of people have woken up to it. A lot of people are still blinded. This is going back to Psalms. And I'm going to finish it out on this. This is Psalms 141. This is a prayer of King David. All right. All right. Crying out. All right. Let's see. And he goes on to say, because the wicked, I could have easily gone to Psalms 62 and 64th chapter. All right. It says, keep me, is verse 9, keep me from the snares which they have laid for me. And the gins, again is repeating, the gins of the workers of iniquity. 10, let the wicked fall into their own nets. And this is what's happening. All right. All this stuff is coming back on them. Let the wicked fall into their own nets, whilst that I withal escape. Wow. Wow. And it's happening right before our eyes. Hey, so with that, I hope whoever reviews this is edified, of course. That's what we do here at Great Middle Stone. Filter everything through the scriptures. All right. Hey, so with that, hey, Shalom.